Good evening, Purple family. Welcome to Shades of Purple, a Prince podcast. On tonight's episode, I'm going to be reviewing Prince's 12th studio album, Graffiti Bridge. In this episode, I'm just going to be reviewing the album, and then the next episode, I'm going to be reviewing the movie. So let's get right into it. So like I said, Graffiti Bridge was Prince's 12th full-length studio album. It was released worldwide back in August of 1990. It was released August 20th in the UK and on August 21st in the United States. For the first time, Prince included on the album tracks he had written and produced for other artists, also included in the movie, and singles were also released to support those artists. The album was largely made up of older tracks which had been revived from the vault and reworked for release, and could be considered a greatest hits of unreleased material. So this was the first album where Prince really brought out a lot of his older material for the vault. And I've been listening to Graffiti Bridge in my car for at least the past week and a half, almost 2 weeks. And a lot of these songs kind of do have a older feeling, an older vibe to them. Particularly the first track that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But as usual, when I do my album reviews, I like to give you a little background information about the album. So the first steps in creating the Graffiti Bridge album and movie would be the movie script that was created for Graffiti Bridge was started way back in September of 1987. Several songs that were mentioned in the first drafts were not kept as the movie underwent further changes. So before he started, like I said, before he started working on Graffiti Bridge, the soundtrack or the album, he was working on the movie. And so he had some tracks, some vault tracks, Ruthie Washington, Jet Blues. No, I think that's the whole thing. Ruthie Washington, Jet Blues, Camille, Everything Could Be So Fine, XYZ, Crucial, Power Fantastic, Beat Town, Big Tall Wall, The Grand Procession, You, Cool, 1990, Billie Holiday, Stimulation, and Born Free. So these were some of the songs that were going to be in the first draft that he was going to include in the Graffiti Bridge movie. The first known configuration of the album was dated September 25th, 1988, however, and a few other configurations are known to have been made around 1989 and 1990. In late 1988, Prince used some of the same tracks for the planned album Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic. So Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic, which of course would come out in 1999, but before he started working on the Batman soundtrack, he was working on another full-scale album, and he entitled it Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic. But once he started working on the Batman soundtrack, he kind of put the Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic project to the side. So let's see what else this says. I'm reading this from theprincevault.com. Several other musicians are listed as contributors on this album, going back to the talking about Graffiti Bridge, but most appear with only minor contributions, with the bulk of the work on the album done by Prince. So this was another album where he did, the majority of the work, the production and all that on it. Tracks were recorded throughout the 1980s. Tick Tick Bang was recorded in 1981 before the album version was recorded in 1989. Can't Stop This Feeling I Got was initially recorded in 1982, then re-recorded in summer of 1986 before the album version was recorded in 1989. Weekend Funk was initially recorded on New Year's Eve 1983 as Weekend Fuck, then re-recorded in summer of 1986 before the album version based on the 1983 recording was worked in 1989. The Question of You was recorded in the summer of 1985 with additional recording in late 1987. Joy in Repetition was recorded in summer of 1986. The Latest Fashion was initially recorded by Prince in spring of 1987. Graffiti Bridge was recorded in the summer of 1987. So just about all of the tracks were recorded in the mid to late 80s. Melody Cool was also recorded in summer of 1987 and was at one point planned for the Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic album, before lead vocals by Mavis Staples was overdubbed in late 1989. Still Would Stand All Time and Elephants and Flowers were recorded in October of 1988 and were also planned for the Raven to the Joy Fantastic album. Release It, Love Machine, Shake were recorded in the summer of 1989 for the Times Corporate World album, along with the reworking of The Latest Fashion, but were moved to Graffiti Bridge when the album was revamped to become Pandemonium. Round and Round was recorded in late 1989, around the same time New Power Generation was reworked from Bold Generation. The final recording of the album, Thieves in the Temple, took place in February 1990. So probably the most well-known song on this album, Thieves in the Temple, was the last song added to the Graffiti Bridge album. So let's go move on and talk about the promotion. The album produced 5 commercially released singles: Thieves in the Temple, which preceded the album, Round and Round by Tevin Campbell, Melody Cool by Mavis Staples, New Power Generation, and Shake by The Time. Tick Tick Bang and The Question of You were also planned to be singles at one point, with The Question of You planned as the album's first single until Thieves in the Temple was recorded and chosen as the first single. And I think that was whoever idea it was, if it was Prince or his management. I think that was a very good idea, because I think that Thieves in the Temple is I don't want to say that it's per se a better song, but I think that it does make for a better single. Prince did not tour to support the album, although he was close to the end of the new tour when the album was released, and he regularly played a track or two from the album in the shows. So how did it do on the charts? The album reached number 6 on the U.S. Billboard Top Pop Albums chart and number 6 on the U.S. Billboard Top Black Albums chart. The album was certified gold by the RIAA 2 months and a half after its release, indicating 500,000 copies shipped in the U.S. So that's a little background about Graffiti Bridge. And so now we're just going to get right into the tracks and talk a little bit about them. So the first track is called Can't Stop This Feeling I Got. And so this was, of course, one of the older songs that we already know was recorded back in 1982, 1981 during the controversy, stemming into the 1999 era. And when you listen to the song, it has like a rockabilly vibe to it. And it sounds like it would be right in place, like in the Controversy album. Like it would be part and parcel to some of the other songs on the album. Because it kind of reminds me of a lot of the songs that are on that album, like Annie Christian and Ronnie Talk to Russia. It has kind of that rockabilly vibe to it. Let's see, what else can we learn about it? Let's see. Okay, so the basic tracking, took place in spring of 1982 in Prince's Carol Wittrell home studio in Chanhassen. The track was re-recorded in June of 1986. It was in sequence after Data Bank, which is another, I guess Data Bank is considered to be unreleased, I believe, still, but it's a really, really good song. And We Can Funk, and the day before recording Girl in My Dreams. So Girl in My Dreams, I know, was another song that was released on the Super Deluxe edition of the Sign of the Times. It's also another good song. So it goes, can't stop this feeling I got, can't stop. It almost sounds like it kind of puts me in the mind of, what is that show? That Saved by the Bell. A little bit, like how the Saved by the Bell comes on, like the old Saved by the Bell. When I wake up in the morning, na, 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 and it has that guitar, kind of sounding almost like a Chuck Berry type of vibe to it, or Footloose. Oh, that's what it really sounds like. Footloose, Footloose, because you can sing the words to Footloose, and then you can hear, can't stop this feeling I got, can't stop, Footloose. Footloose. So I don't know if I can't remember when Footloose came out, but I know it came out, I want to say around the early 80s. I could be wrong, or like the mid 80s. So I don't know who inspired who, but to me, I get like a kind of a Footloose feeling when I hear Can't Stop This Feeling I Got. So that's that one. So the next track, New Power Generation, aka Bold Generation. Now, Bold Generation was also an older track that was made around the 1999 era. And New Power Generation, of course, would be the name that Prince would give his backing band when he finally decided to give his backing band a name. Because, of course, after the Revolution disbanded in 1986, he did have a band that he used for the Sign of the Times and the Love Sexy tour, but they really didn't have a name. But you could argue that may have been the beginnings of the MBG, but he didn't come out and call them the MBG, I think, until like Diamonds and Pearls, which is the next album after Graffiti Bridge, maybe. But New Power Generation is kind of, an up-tempo song. It kind of has a different levels of New Jack Swing in it. And for those of you who are not familiar with New Jack Swing, just think of like Bobby Brown, his type of music that was really popular in the late 80s, like a Don't Be Cruel, that whole thing. Teddy Riley, who also was a big producer for Michael Jackson on his Dangerous album, he was one of the creators of so-called New Jack Swing. And I don't know exactly where they got the name from, but there was a very popular movie called New Jack City, starring Wesley Snipes as this like drug lord. So I don't know if they got the name from that, but anyway, it became like this whole subgenre of like R&B music. And Teddy Riley was one of the creators of that. And New Power Generation kind of has a little bit of that vibe to it. It's a cool song, and just kind of like Can't Stop the Feeling I Got. It's like this Graffiti Bridge to me is just one of his most eclectic albums, because it has an old school feel. It has kind of it's a different type of vibe altogether, because he's really doing a lot of different experimenting in this album that he really didn't do with a lot of his other albums. And for me, I don't know, Graffiti Bridge to me was always one of those albums where I didn't really listen to it a whole lot, but because I had to listen to it to do this review, I'm starting to really kind of appreciate kind of where Prince was trying to go with this album. It's so different from his other I don't even really know if this is really considered to be a soundtrack album in the same way that Purple Rain and Parade was. But I know that he was kind of trying to go in that same vein of making it a soundtrack album, because of course all of these songs are in the movie, I think, just about all of them. And but because the movie was so different from Purple Rain and Under the Cherry Moon, that it just, I don't know. The album obviously did much better than the movie did. But it's just one of those albums that just kind of makes you go, okay, Prince, this is different. This is different. So, New Power Generation, that is the second track. So if I'm going kind of fast, or I'm not really, like how I do my reviews, for those who don't know, I just kind of talk a little bit about, my feeling about the track. And I try to give like a little extra background if I see something on the Prince vault that kind of catches my eye. But other than that, I kind of go through the tracks kind of fast. So let me know how you feel about that. If you feel like I'm not adding enough information, or if I'm talking too much, I really would like to get your feedback on that. So let's move on to the third track, which is Release It, which is actually the time track. Now, the first time track that's on this album, there is another one called Shake It, or Shake Something. And but this is the first one, Release It. So around the same time that he was working on Graffiti Bridge, as Prince's nature, he's working on all these different projects. So he was working on another time album called Pandemonium. And this is kind of how Prince was able to kind of charm Morris Day and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis to come into the movie project of Graffiti Bridge, because he had kind of, set it up to be kind of like a sequel to Purple Rain. And of course, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis had got fired before the making of Purple Rain. And so they automatically kind of jumped on it. Morris Day, I think, was a little bit more hesitant, but he kind of attracted them by saying, hey, well, while we're working on Graffiti Bridge, let's start on this new time album called, eventually it was going to be called Pandemonium, but the first name for it was Corporate World. So Release It was one of those first tracks that was supposed to go on the Pandemonium, that would go on the Pandemonium album, but it ended up also on the Graffiti Bridge album. let's see, while specific recording dates are unknown, the basic tracking was took place at Paisley Park. And a lot of these other tracks that are, not as old, he mostly reworked them at his Paisley Park studios. Let's see. Love Machine, Shea, Corporate World, and the latest fashion. 9 Lives, Donald Trump. That's the name of a song. All these were songs that was going to be on that Corporate World album. Let's see. The album was abandoned when Warner Brothers wanted to involve the original members of the time, but many of the tracks were saved for Pandemonium and Graffiti Bridge. So Corporate World was abandoned because they really wanted all of the original time members to come back, and I guess they weren't all interested. It was included as the third track in the late configuration in 1989. And so the song contains an uncredited sample of Squib Cakes by the Tower of Power. So I don't really know a lot about the Tower of Power, so forgive me, but I do know that they have a really good drummer. And Morris Day, when he talked about some of his early influences when he was a drummer, he talked a lot about the Tower of Power. And so they take a sample from that group from a song called Squib Cake. So that's interesting. Let's see what else. It was also, Squib Cakes was also later sampled on Sleep Around, which was on the Emancipation album. So there's that. That's interesting. So that is Release It. And in Release It, it's Morris Day mostly doing the vocals, and he's kind of taking on that, that character that Prince created for him in the Purple Rain. He's doing that, ha ha ha, I can't do it, but he's it's so funny, his little funny Morris Day laugh that he has that going on several times throughout the song. And it's a groovy little song. I like it. It's one of those songs that it just sounds like a time song, and I know there's probably a version with Prince's vocals on it, but it really, to me, Morris Day's vocals really work good for this particular song. So going on, so the next song, The Question of You. Now, this song was actually inspired by a Joni Mitchell's song called A Case of You. And this is something that I know that's not even, I don't know if it's even written on here, but because it sounds like, to me, a Joni Mitchell song called A Case of You. And let's see what we can learn about it. The song started as an instrumental committed to tape during the so-called Paisley Jam on December 28th of 1985. So back during this time, during the 80s, Prince and Levi Searcy and Sheila E. and Eric Lee, sometimes they would all get together and have a jam session. And so this song, The Question of You, came out from one of those particular jam sessions. And it's the same session where also was produced Madrid, Breathless, Slaughterhouse, You Just Can't Stop, Run Amok, High Conic, and Mobile. So I think these are some more unreleased songs. At this point, it was titled 12 Keys by Eric Leeds, who named all the tracks from the session. It is unknown if this version was ever considered for the Flesh album or any other project at the time. So in July of 1986, a new version was cut by Prince alone in his Galpin Boulevard home in Chanhassen. This re-recording was shelved until Prince began work on the Graffiti Bridge. So it was just another one of those early songs that he just pulled from the vault and kind of reworked it. Let's see. A year later, it was concluded in the final configuration. In March of 1990, Claire Fisher recorded some string overdubs for the song in the Mad Hatter Studios. So The Question of You is, I like the guitar in it, and he played it a lot on the Nude tour. There's a lot of footage on YouTube of the different concerts of the Nude tour, and it was a very popular song that he played on the Nude tour. So that's The Question of You. So going on next, I think we're on number 5 now. Elephants and Flowers. So the basic tracking for this took place on the 6th of October in 1988 at Paisley Park. This was during 2 days off from the Love Sexy tour between shows in Toronto and Ontario, Canada. And on the same day, he recorded Still Will Stand All Time, which is also on this album. This version contained different verses to the release version, but contains the same chorus. It was initially included on a configuration of Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic album. So let's see what else. The Question of You it was also done around the same time that he was redoing The Question of You. So he kind of did all of these, some of these kind of all together, like he did with most of his other albums. He kind of recorded many of the same songs around the same time. Elephants and Flowers is kind of it's a different type of song. It's a kind of a song that you kind of have to really kind of get into and listen to. I really didn't I wanted to look at some of the lyrics, but I never got around to looking at the lyrics. But it's just one of those songs. I hate to say it's a song that I skip, because it really isn't, but it's not a song that just really stands out to me. So maybe I just have to listen to it some more, and maybe it'll grow on me. But I really don't have much to say about Elephants and Flowers, if I'm being honest. So moving on, but I do have a lot to say about the next track on the album, which is Round and Round. Tevin Campbell sung this song with his cute self. And this was the first song, I think, it was a song that, of course, I think catapulted his career. But it was a song that when I first heard it, because I actually first heard it in the movie when I saw the first time that I saw Graffiti Bridge, the movie. And I didn't know who Tevin Campbell was at the time, but I just thought that he was just the cutest little thing. And the first thing that popped into my mind now, all these many years later, I'm like, I was thinking to myself, okay, so Prince decided that he was going to make his own little Michael Jackson. Because he did have Tevin Campbell did kind of have a Michael Jackson, like when Michael Jackson was a little boy, kind of sounded, he had kind of that same range and sounded a lot like him. And so when Tevin sings the song in the movie, you can't help but look at Prince kind of smiling at him, looking like a proud father, like, there's my boy. I'm going to get my own little Michael Jackson, So let me see what else. The track is also featured, what we just said in the movie. The soul mix edit of the track was included as the first track on Tevin Campbell's first album, Tevin. Okay, so it was also on his first album. Let's see. I wonder even how they even got together. He just did was it not unsung or uncensored? He did an uncensored episode where he talked about the time that he spent with Prince, and he said that Prince loved the Mr. Good bar, candy bar, and he said that was really the only thing he ever saw Prince ate. And he said they would hang out all the time, and Prince would take him driving, and they would be in the car just listening to music and just having a really good time. And he said that he had really fun memories of this time spending time with Prince, and he said that Prince really helped him and showed him a lot, and he was just so very grateful for the time that he was able to spend in Prince's world. And this song, Round and Round, is a really, really catchy song. It's just one of those songs that will just stay in your head. It'll go round and round in your head. I can't sing, y'all know that, but I do it anyway. So round and round we go, round and round and round. So it's just one of those things that'll just stay in your head all day. So I love it. It's one of my personal favorite tracks on this album. So up next is low key, probably my favorite song on the album. I know a lot of people's favorite is probably Thieves in the Temple, which is further on down the track list. But for me, it's Weak and Funk. This is probably the one song when I was listening to Graffiti Bridge back to back for the past week and a half, 2 weeks. I played this song on repeat because to me it is so funny and funky, and because I like Prince's funk songs, like his funky songs, because I like Erotic City. Now I have to admit, Erotic City had to initially grow on me, but now it's one of my favorite funk songs. And then Scarlet Pussy is another one that I like, his funk songs. So this is another funky song that he did in collaboration with the funk man himself, George Clinton. And I just really think the lyrics come straight from a George Clinton-esque like Parliament Funkadelic vibe. Because one of the lyrics says, I'm testing positive for the funk, and I'll gladly pee in anybody's cup. And when the overflow, I will gladly pee again. You know, just like, I'm like, what are we talking about? Peeing in somebody's cup. And We Can Funk, you know, initially, of course, the initial one from way back in 1983 was We Can Funk, which is another banger song. Like, it's one of my favorite songs, no lie. I don't know how this is going to sound, but I'm just going to say it. It's one of my favorite songs to work out to. And I mean actual workout. Because the only version of We Can Funk is the one that's on Spotify. And it's on one of my Prince playlists. And I mean, as soon as it comes on, it makes you want to move. And it's one of that one and Extra Lovable are probably my two favorite quote unquote unreleased songs. And I say quote unquote because technically both Extra Lovable and We Can Funk have been released, but not released in their like raw form. So for me, I still consider them to be unreleased. But anyway, so I'm going off a little bit, but We Can Funk is just probably the most creative song I think on this whole album. And it's just one of those things that I just love the vibe to it. I love the lyrics. I love the pump 'em and funk 'em. You know, just like I can't say enough good about this collaboration. This was a collaboration that we know that we needed, and we got it with this song, because George Clinton and Prince are two of the funkiest mofos of all time. And so it was just a matter of time before they got together. And Prince would go on to help him meaning George Clinton, he would produce an album for him called Hey Man, Smell My Finger, that would be on Paisley Park Records. I think that came out in like 92 or 93. So let me see what else. What else can we learn about We Can? So of course he changed the title from We Can Funk to We Can Funk in 1986 because, you know, I mean, that is kind of a, you know, very sexually explicit title. So I understand him wanting to change it. Let's see what else. That was initially recorded. That was a jam session from the 30th of December of 1983. And then, but on the title, on the sheet, when he recorded it, instead of putting the name of the song, it was listed as The Dawn and Moral Majority, respectively, because he didn't want the original title was considered too raunchy. So it got changed to The Dawn and then The Moral Majority. So it actually had two other titles before he decided to say We Can Funk. He would later tone down the title and the lyrics and re-record the track on the 17th of June in 1986. And I've also heard this version too, and this is the version that doesn't have George Clinton on it, that's called We Can Funk. But toward the end of the song, he does say We Can Funk. Like, he says it and he kind of slips it in there. But the lyrics, one of the first lyrics that he says in the song is, I can play with your mind. And just based on what I know about Prince and his dealings with women, I think that he was probably being his true self saying this, because he did like to play mind games with women, and not just women, but really with people in general, but especially women. So he said, when I can play with your mind, yeah. And another lyric that I thought was interesting toward the end, before he gets to doing all of his screaming, is he said, I could be your girl or a boy. I could be your big, strong man. You know, it's up to you. So he was letting his woman know, like, I could be versatile. You know, I can, like he said in another song, tell me how you want to be done. Like, I can do it whatever way. I can be your big, strong man. I can be, you know, a little feminine if you want me to be. And that kind of goes in part and parcel. I don't know why I keep wanting to say part and parcel. But Robin Power, she had talked about when she had, you know, sexual relations with Prince, how she felt like she was having sex with a man and a woman. And so when you have these lyrics like this, and then you know, hear her or mention her saying that, they kind of vibes together. So that means that he was versatile in the sack. But that's neither here nor there now. But I just thought that was a little interesting tidbit. Let's see what else. So actually, George Clinton, he also updated, of course, the song with his musicians and replacing some of Prince's vocals. And you can kind of tell, the part where he says, testing positive for the funk, that's obviously not Prince's vocals. This version was included as a second track on the 1992 Hey Man Smell My Finger, but it didn't make the final cut of the album and it remains unreleased. Okay, so there's another version. I mean, there's so many of these same. Literally, I feel like the vault is probably filled of maybe songs that have been released, but all these different versions and mixes and edits of these songs. So to be honest, I'm starting to think that's what's taking up a good majority of the vault. And I could be wrong. Shoot me if I am. But I'm fine with that. I still want to hear everything that's in there, regardless of how it sounds, because we all know Prince's B-sides and his demos sound better than the stuff that is out there now that other people are doing. So let's just keep it real on that. But okay, I'm digressing too much. Let me move on. So the next track is Joy in Repetition. And one of my favorite things about this song is the guitar solo. It's one of his best in my opinion. And Joy in Repetition is just a song about this guy meeting this girl and how they just kind of fall in love kind of organically. And it's a cool song. Like I said, my favorite part of it is the guitar solo toward the end. Let's see. In 2002, a live version of Joy in Repetition was included as the opening track on the live One Night Alone album, the after show It Ain't Over. And I have heard that version as well, and it's really good. Let's see, what else can we learn about Joy in Repetition? The fact that he keeps saying it throughout the song, joy and repetition, there's joy. And, it's kind of playing off of that, saying it and repeating it, you get it. So that's Joy and Repetition. Really good song. And he just kind of says at the end, he just wants someone to love him. Love me. Love me. It's really sweet. So the next track, Love Machine, is another song kind of like Round and Round that doesn't have Prince's vocals on it. It actually is sung by Elisa Ferrillo. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it was initially sung by Jill Jones. And Jill Jones mentioned in an interview, because like I said, I've probably listened to every single interview I think Jill Jones has ever done. She said that she kind of think Prince kind of had Alicia do the vocals on this song out of spite, because it was around this time that Jill was kind of getting ready to leave Prince's camp. They were having, different, falling out, and they was just not vibing like they once were. And so Jill claims that she kind of feels like Prince did this to be petty against her, because they were having so much, so much beef at the time. And she was just like, you're just being petty. And then she said that Prince said, well, no, she sung it better. And she was like, bullshit, no, you're being petty, So I don't know how all that went down, but in Love Machine, I could give her take it. Alicia Ferrillo, she has a nice voice, but I guess her singing is just not kind of my style. She's just like, you could tell she's a white girl, I guess is. And I'm like, don't call me a racist or anything like that. It's very, I got the toys, gonna make your body higher. She's just like, I don't know. She sounds like a white girl. She just does. And it's just one of those songs, make you scream and shout out. I don't know. I really do think that Jill Jones probably did do a better job, but I think that her version is still unreleased, I believe. But I don't know. It just wasn't a song that really stood out to me in any shape or form. It's cool, but it's not my thing. I'll just be honest. The version, let's see what else we can learn about it though before I just let it go. This version contained the line, when I need trombone, my dog is handy. When I need sax, I call Candy, which of course was used in A Party Man. But for some reason, I don't know if that lyric is correct. When I need trombone, my dog is handy. I always thought he was saying, when I need trombone, my jaws is handy. Talking about his jaws. Because Prince did play some wind instruments, probably not, at a professional level. And actually, Jill Jones, going back to her again, she tells the story of Prince playing the saxophone and how he kept playing it, and it just didn't really sound right, but he just kept at it, and finally he kind of got it to sound like he wanted to. So he didn't really have a lot of experience with wind instruments, but I thought that's what the line meant. When I need trombone, my jaws is handy. When I need sax, I call Candy, which is referring to Candy. I think is she from Denmark? Or I can't remember what country she's from. But anyway, Candy Duffler, I think is her last name. Duffler. Talking about her. So there was some overdubs for that on a Love Machine, apparently. So, okay, interesting. All right, so the next song, Tick Tick Bang, was another early song that Prince recorded way back in 1981. And when you hear Tick Tick Bang, it's another song that I think would find a very good home on the Dirty Mind album or the Controversy album. So, it still has that same feel to it to me. The song uses an uncredited sample of Little Miss Lover by the Jimi Hendrix Experience, which, okay, that's interesting. Let's see what else. The basic tracking took place in summer of 1981. The track was re-recorded from scratch from mostly new lyrics. So the lyrics that he did in 1981, he kind of changed up for in 1989 when he put it on the Graffiti Bridge album. And I kind of like the only thing that I kind of like about this song is a doon 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 doon. Just kind of like the little, and I guess that it sounds like a little tick tick. I guess it's supposed to sound like a tick tick bang, but it has kind of a kind of like the song Graffiti Bridge kind of has like a alternative kind of feel to it. With Prince, you just like never know. Like he can skip genres like nobody else. So this one sounds like another little kind of alternative kind of ditty song, and it's cool. And I actually remember when he did the song in the movies, it was when he had that heart on his chest, and that was one of the songs that he sung when they were doing that battle between him and Morris's band. And I was just like, what is going on? And then he got down on all fours. It was like, all over you. I'm just like, okay, Prince. Anyway, moving on. So the next track is Shake. Now, Shake is another Time track that is sung by Morris Day. And this song really kind of stood out to me later when I was listening to Welcome to America album that came out 2 years ago. It sounded like, what is that song? Hot Summer. It reminded me of, Shake reminded me of that song, Hot Summer reminded me of Shake. And for the longest though, I couldn't remember what song that I was thinking about when I heard Hot Summer. And then when I went back and listened to Shake, when I started listening to this album again, I was like, oh, okay, that's where I'm getting that vibe from. So they really sound similar. And I remember in the movie, this was the Time song that they sang is kind of like their closer, kind of like what they did in Purple Rain when they did the Bird. This was their closing song. And I remember there was a big like bottle of hot sauce or something in the back on the stage. And I was just like, okay, so that's interesting. But I don't know, that might have referred to, their whole chili sauce thing the Time had going on. And I could just remember, and it's been a while since I've seen the movie, but I will also be reviewing the movie as well at some point. But I don't know if I'm going to do it right after this review. So it might be a few weeks before I get to that. Because I'm going to talk about some other things. But anyway, so Robin was just dancing her butt off, because she played Morris Day's girlfriend in the movie. And that's probably the one thing that I remember about this song is how it was portrayed more so in the movie than I do the song itself. But, you know, he says, you know, shake, gotta shake something. And so it's a pretty good song. And it's another song that I think fits really good for the time. So Prince did never lose his genius of knowing what songs work with what groups of people or what individuals. And so the time songs really sound like time songs, you know. Shake and Release It are, you know, just really just fit very well on a time album. So the next track, of course, is probably the most famous track, well-known track, first single, Thieves in the Temple. And Thieves in the Temple, when I first heard it, I really, really liked this song. And the lyric that stands out to me the most was one of his first lyrics that said, they don't care where they kick, just as long as they hurt you. And to me, that really spoke to me, because there have been times I know in my life where I've really felt betrayed by people, and it felt like someone kicked me in my heart. You know, like he says later, kicking me in my heart, you know, and that's hurtful, you know, and it's almost like, just like Prince says, they really don't care where they kick you, just as long as it hurts you somewhere. And, you know, and I don't know exactly what was, you know, going on with Prince at this time. Now, I know that this is kind of getting closer to the time where him and Warner Brothers is about to have their big fallout, but we're still about a year or two away from that, from the official fallout. But mind you, you know, the genesis of all this was really starting in the late 80s when he was putting together the Crystal Ball album, and they told him that was too much music. So I'm thinking this more has something to do with Warner Brothers and how he feels like they were, you know, not giving him the proper credit for his work. And I could be wrong about that interpretation, but that's just, you know, my feeling about what the song was really talking about. And like I said, the lyrics pretty much like stand for themselves. And a lot of people think that he was actually doing, you know, people, you know, yes, Prince was a multi-instrumentalist, but no, he does not play a harmonica. He wasn't playing that. That was actually a sample. Let me see if I can find out who the sample was from. The harmonica is sampled from I Can't Stand It by the Chamber Brothers. So no, he wasn't doing the harmonica in there. But yes, we know that he is multi-instrumentalist, talented and all that, but he wasn't doing the harmonica in this song here. And of course, Thieves in the Temple has an extended version. If y'all have seen the video on YouTube, the extended version of the video is also on YouTube. So check that out if you haven't seen it. This was Thieves in the Temple was also included on the first disc of the hits, the B-sides, which came out in 1993, and the Best of Prince, which came out in 2001. The Very Best of Prince, which came out in 2001, which is an album that I bought. The Very Best of Prince. I want to say, had to be like in the 2010s when I bought that one. And that was one of my favorite albums that I will listen to in the car all the time. Let's see what else. And then I like how he kind of just breaks down toward the end of the song where he's like, you said you loved me. You lied. And the way he said, you lied. Like he just put his whole art into it. Like, you know. So, you know, he starts just, you know, going off. And I'm just like, he's got to be talking about the people at Warner Brothers. Because I don't really see him necessarily talking about a woman. But, you know, you never know with Prince. So that's Thieves in the Temple. Moving on, the latest fashion is yet another track kind of for the time. And it kind of reminds me of another track about fashion that he did with the Family on the Family album. The high fashion. I was about to say highest fashion, but a high fashion. It kind of reminds me of that song. And I don't know if it's because they have the same word fashion in it, but it just sounds kind of similar to me. It says, let's see what we can learn about the latest fashion. It was going to be included on the Corporate World version, or the Corporate World album, excuse me. Let's see. So specific dates are unknown, but he recorded it in April of 1987 at his Galpin home studio. In July or August of 1989, Morris Day recorded co-lead vocal overdubs at Paisley Park. And Candy Dofler, here she is again, added saxophone to the track at Paisley Park in late July of 1989. And along with saxophone overdubs on Love Machine, My Summertime Thing, Release It, Murph Drag, Donald Trump, Black Version, Data Bank, and My Baby Knows. The song was included as the 8th track on the Corporate World album in early September 1989, as planned for release in November of 1989. But of course, Warner Brothers decided not to release the album, and it ended up on the Pandemonium album. So that is the latest fashion. It's credited to the time with Prince. So it's 4.5 months after the album's release. The track was included as a B-side to Shake. Okay, so that's interesting. And I know people are like, why does she keep saying that? That's interesting, but I really don't know what else to say. I mean, information that you don't know, or I always say, hey, okay, that's interesting. Okay, Melody Cool is yet another song on this album that is sung by someone other than Prince. It's sung by Mavis Staple from the famous Mavis the Staple Family Group. I'll take you there. Doom, 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 doom. The Mavis, so it's not the Mavis Staple sing, it's the Stavis Singers. So she also ended up doing a album at Paisley Park Records with Prince. But Melody Cool was a cool track, and it fit her like a glove. And her album was called The Voice. That was the name of her album. And I think was it on that album? Yeah, it was included as the 12th track in 1995. So her album came out in 1995 called The Voice, and it was on her album. The basic tracking took place in July of 1987. It was during Prince's first recording session at Paisley Park. So Paisley Park actually didn't open to the public until September of 1987, but he was in there by July already recording, and this was Melody Cool was one of the first recordings at Paisley Park. So it was one of the earliest recordings to be released there. And Prince has original vocals that we would love to hear. So hopefully if they do, they have to do another originals, like originals part 2. Like, who wants that? Everybody. So I would love to hear Prince's original vocals on this song. But Mavis Staples, knocked it out the park. I love her vocals. And because it is talking about, it has like a female, story. So it probably, her version would probably sound better than Prince's, but I would still like to hear her version. But Melody Cool, she played Tevin Campbell's mother in the movie, which I thought was kind of funny because I know Mavis Staples is probably old enough to be his grandmother. But anyway, moving on. So that's Melody Cool. The next track, Still Will Stand All Time, is a beautiful song. It's another one of his gospel-inspired religious songs. And not too soon, I want to say, the last time I saw Graffiti Bridge with my husband, which was probably a few years ago now, I would say maybe about 2-3 years ago, he sings this song, of course, after the death of Ingrid Chavez's character. I think she was never given a name, was she? She was just an angel or something. Anyway, it was after her death that he sings Still Will Stand All Time. So this was like his version of Purple Rain, one of the anticlimactic scene in the movie. And this is a song that he sings. And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. And the way that Prince sings it is absolutely wonderful. And it's a song that I often come back to and listen to when I'm feeling in kind of a spiritual mood. It's really a good song to come to. The original version featured Prince on background vocals, but vocal overdubs by the Steels, The Time, and Jill Jones were added at some point in 1989. So Jill Jones is still doing background vocal work for Prince all the way up until 1989, 1990. The original version was initially included on a configuration for Wave Into the Joy Fantastic. And I have a question about that, you guys. What do you think? Do y'all think that Rave Into the Joy Fantastic, because it sounded like, now, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the album that came out in 1999, because I really do feel like this album that was supposed to come out in 1989 before he did Batman, now I think this album, Brave Into the Joy Fantastic, I think it would have been a better album. Y'all might disagree, but I think just listening to some of these songs, I really do think that this Brave Into the Joy Fantastic album would have been a better album than what came out in 99. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? So anyway, moving on, we got two more songs, Graffiti Bridge. So Graffiti Bridge is kind of one of those alternative sounding songs. Everybody wants to go to Graffiti Bridge. Yeah, I know that wasn't right, but you know, it reminds me of that song Paisley Park, that song Around the World in a Day, you know, Paisley Park, da, 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 da. So it's in that same vein where it's sounding kind of like a psychedelic type of song, but it almost sounds kind of like a nursery rhyme or like a children's song too, because it's talking about love. Everybody wants to be in love. Everybody wants to, feel wanted. And, it is just, talking about that. And actually there wasn't supposedly an actual graffiti bridge in Minneapolis that was just destroyed many years ago. And it might have already been destroyed by the time Prince made a whole album about it. But he was just saying that he's relating this to wanting to fall in love and be in love with someone. So I thought that was interesting. Let's see, what else can we learn? The basic tracking took place in July of 1987. So at Paisley Park. So once again, it's one of the earlier recordings at Paisley Park that he did. Let's see. An earlier version was recorded on September 25th, 1988. So this Rave Into the Joy Fantastic album was really going to be coming together, seems like. Claire Fisher would also do some more overdub strings on it as well. So it's another song that kind of like Paisley Park that you're just like, oh, it's okay, but it's a song that will stick in your mind. Kind of like Round and Round. It will stick in your mind long enough. And I really like, what I really like about the Graffiti Bridge song is the like that, kind of like that run. I like that part of the song. So I like a little bit of the melody of the song. I guess that's what I'm saying. So finally, the last song, New Power Generation, aka Bold Generation Part 2, is kind of a continuation of the first New Power Generation song, except now you have TC rapping in it. And these sessions took place, during the same set of sessions as Tony's Ignite mix, Get Off, The Lubricated Lady, Love Left, Love Right, and a segue later included in the MBG Funky Weapon remix. So this is something that was added on after the fact. It was remixed in September or October of 1990 at Larrabee Sound Studios in Hollywood. So they added on that rap later. And let's see what else. And TC's rap included the rap True Confessions, which was later developed into a full track for inclusion as the title track of his album True Confessions. The rap and the fully developed track have no input by Prince. So this was all on TC Ellis. This was all his doing. And just like with Tony M and his raps, and a lot of people talk shit about Tony M and say he was not a good rapper and whatever, but I think that he was perfect for Prince, because Prince, being the control freak that he was not going to, work with more established rappers because he couldn't control their narrative. So he wanted, if he was going to do rap, he was always going to do it his way. And this was his way. So we got to respect that. So that's the last track on the album. And what do you guys think about Graffiti Bridge? Be honest. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's all right? For me, I think it's just kind of, there are some really good tracks on this album, but it probably wouldn't make my top 10. And I don't even think it did. I did a top 10 of my favorite Prince albums. It would probably be in my top 15 maybe. But it's just not one that I come back to listen to a lot. But now that I have listened to it again, I think I will definitely try to listen to it more often, because there are some songs that I really do like on this album. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments on Spotify or on the Facebook page when I upload this. I want to hear from you guys. So until then, peace and be wild, and may you live to see the dawn. Bye.